Welcome to another Lombardi Live, and thank you for joining me today. Over the past weeks, I've had the opportunity to interview some of the best drummers in the world, including Mike Mitchell, Antonio Sanchez, Queen Cora, Marco Minimum, Dennis Chambers, Terry Bozzio, Mick Fleetwood. The names go on as the weeks have gone on, and you can see all those shows on demand right now on drumchannel.com. Today we're going to be telling Buddy Rich stories. There's a lot of Buddy Rich stories out there, and these are some really great ones by people who are actually there and are firsthand telling you these stories. It's a fascinating discussion with a legendary drummer, one of Buddy's dearest friends, and three drummers I know you know very well. Their careers, they say, were shaped very much by Buddy. You should really listen to what they have to say, because I think you need to know about the drummers who came before you. I was fortunate enough to know Buddy and see him play on many occasions. Here are some fun and educational stories about Buddy. They're part of a 4-part interview that's on DC right now. Enjoy. Our all-star guest panel today, Greg Bissonette joining us.
Yeah, Greg.
One of the greatest drummers and educators of all time. Obviously played with Ringo Starr's band regularly. And currently and in the future, kind of a dream gig for sure. And he has the Greg Bissonette Drum School here on Drum Channel. Can't get better than that. Danny Serafine is also joining us here today in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, of course. I can't say of course, but it is so well deserved. Everybody would think that would be natural. The Art of Jazz Rock Drumming, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm so proud to have produced that, one of my stellar projects.
Directed, produced and directed.
Remember all my life. And Street Player, the book also. Terry Bozzio needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. In the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame, and I can tell you a little bit story about that because they created a category for Terry in the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame because they were tired of him winning his category so many years in a row. Also has his 2018 reality tour, which you can see as a digital download here on Drum Channel right now. As soon as we finish this, you could be watching Terry. We also have our special guest. Mr. Frank DeVito is here with us too. Yeah. Friend of Buddy for many years, top studio drummer here in LA. An amazing discography we'll talk about, a little bit. Recorded with major artists, and he just kind of rolls off of his tongue. I have an interview here on Drum Channel that we did a little earlier today just with Frank. Surfin' USA, Whipped Cream with the Tijuana Brass, Witchcraft, Strangers in the Night with Frank Sinatra. Not to mention, if you want to go back a little bit, Glowworm. Any of us remember that?
Yeah.
You kind of remember that one?
The Mills Brothers, 1952.
I'm going to ask you when you first met Buddy, but Danny, of course, one of the most air drum drummers of all time. Everybody knew those fills. There's no question about it. There's a fill that this gentleman also played that I used to go back and forth on the record to and love to play it at that point. But play a little bit of Witchcraft for me here for just a second. See if you guys recognize this one. And there's a story behind it too.
Yeah, that's Frank's idea.
But one I wouldn't switch, 'cause there's no nicer witch than you.
So you're in the studio. How did that come about?
Well, let me start at the beginning a little bit. The drummers that played with Frank on the records usually played pretty conservatively. They didn't play busy. Most of the records of that Capitol at that time, Alvin played. The great Alvin Stoller and Irv Kotler and other guys. So I listened to these guys, and when I first went with Frank, so I want to play like Alvin, and I'm going to play in that groove. I want to keep the job. So I played, conservatively. Anyway, when we got to this point that Frank ended that phrase, and then the band plays boo da da da. There's an empty spot. I'm standing with Sinatra at Capitol, the big room Capitol down there, and I'm here, and he's over there. We're in front of the speakers, And when we got to that point where there's I didn't play anything. He looked at me and he went, he didn't say anything. He just went, hey, this was it. So I said, okay, I knew what he meant, and that's why I played.
The next
those
take
fills.
you put it in.
The next take I did, and that's the take they kept.
Oh,
That's great. He had such great time, man.
Yeah.
I'd be watching him, and he'd move his shoulders a little bit, and sometimes he would play with the time. Sometimes, I know one thing we used to do, the Lonesome Road, look down, you know, and we start off one tempo, and I'd see him going with his shoulders. And they look around, he wanted it to stretch out a little bit, you know. So wherever he went, we went, you know.
What year was that?
1957. Yeah, and then and I did a bunch of the Capitol dates then. But later on, in the 60s, Hal Blaine called me. He said, I'm doing Sinatra dates at Western or United, one of those. I forget where it was. This was when Frank formed his own Reprise. He wasn't recording on Capitol anymore. Anyway, he said, I have to leave during, and then I'll come back. Come and cover for me, you know, because you played with Frank. And yeah, I said, yeah, okay. So I get to the studio, and I sat down. Hal, they were just finishing, and Hal got up. He went like this, then see you later. And Sinatra saw me, you know, and I figured, what's he gonna, you know, I hadn't seen him in a long time. What's another drummer, you know? And all these, hey, baby. That was it. Hey, baby, how you doing? And I said, okay. So I got to play on The Summer Wind and a couple of other things. Because before, when Hal left, he says, I played all the loud stuff. He said, now you can play the rest. And he came back later. Hal was, yeah.
When did you meet Buddy Rich? What year?
Got really friendly with him in around 57 when I was at the Sands with Frank. And Buddy would be, Frank would say, I want Buddy's group in the lounge. I want Buddy with it. This is before the band, before he, you know, put that band together, the big band. And so Buddy would be there, and he'd have Harry Edison and great players, and he'd be in the lounge. So Vegas in the 50s and 60s, 10,000 drummers working in town, and man, they would all be there, everybody be there, and I was close in the room there, you know. So that's when I got to know we'd hang out. And it's the biggest thrill in my life, man. And I'm going to be playing sometime, and the doors would be open, you know. Those rooms weren't really huge in Vegas, you know, in those days. And I'm playing one of the tunes, and I'd look, and I'd see Buddy standing in the door a little bit, and he'd be between the sets, and he'd be digging. So that made me a little nervous at the beginning, but later I said, in fact, he'd always get me to sit in. Come on up and play. And the first time I said, no,
We've got
nobody wants
a picture of Frank sitting in with Buddy's band.
Well, with the big band.
We'll take a look with the big band later.
He, for some reason, the bass player, wonderful bass player, he passed away a while ago. He was on the band playing electric bass.
Oh, Dave Carpenter.
David Carpenter.
Dave, yeah.
Dave Carpenter,
Yeah.
Great
player.
player.
He was with the band. And he said, he never asks anybody to sit in. I said, something about me, maybe, I don't know what it is, you know.
When I saw him, when I drove Nick Ceroli and Freddie Gruber down to see him when he put the band together for the first time at the Shea.
Oh, his big band.
His big band was the very first time they put them together.
Yeah.
Nick had a few drinks, to say the least. I was the designated driver. I think I was 17. I still had my grandfather's car, so I must have been 16 or 17.
Oh, jeez.
And I looked this way, and I looked back, and Nick isn't there, and he's up on the bandstand. Buddy had to ask him to come up.
Yeah.
And the way Buddy introduced them was, we have a couple of friends down there, and he didn't know me that well at the time. I wasn't introduced, but I was sitting next to those two guys. He said, we have a gentleman here in the band sitting here, and he goes 4 loud bass drums.
Oh yeah.
That was Nick, because Tijuana Brass, Taste of Honey. Nick
he thought Nick did it, but Hal did the record.
Right.
But
Hal
that was
did the record,
you're right.
Nick was
you're
playing
right.
in the band at that time.
Yeah.
Then he asked Nick to come up, and then he looked at Freddie and he said, and also sitting next to him, if he would ever stop playing on practice pads, he would be a great drummer, Freddie Gruber.
Historically speaking, you can look at epochs in history, you know, and
Krupa, Buddy.
well, yeah, you know, but Buddy was like, you know, the invention of an automatic weapon. It's
Yeah.
just like, forget it.
Oh, God,
this
yeah.
is superhuman. This is, you know.
I still listen to him about 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
the morning, sometimes if I want to be inspired,
I know.
I listen to Buddy.
Thank
I still
God.
listen
Thank
to
God all that
Buddy a
is
lot.
there,
I
man,
listen,
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Pacific,
YouTube.
what Pacific Years they call it, or what? Oh, it's so tasteful.
At one of the NAMM shows,
Yeah.
okay, his band is playing, and I'm sitting with Armand and I forget who, maybe Gruber, a bunch of people,
Lenny.
Lenny.
and he did what's the tune you mentioned before, West Side Story,
Yeah.
and
Channel One
Sweet.
yeah, I mean it just rocked that whole. I mean he just played. That's so great. He always played great, but this time
He was on.
and we're sitting there and we're sharing and just mesmerized. Yeah. So he comes, okay, bang, comes off of the stage, comes down to our table. He's got the towels on, and he's standing next to me, and I grabbed him, man. I got up and I grabbed him. I said, "I love you, you know," and you know that started rumors probably about me. But anyway, I couldn't help it. I said, "Buddy, man, you are from another planet." And you know what he did? He went, "Maybe I am."
Wow.
And he was serious.
Oh, he was.
Huh?
Yeah, he was.
I mean-
he was otherworldly for sure.
Oh,
And,
one time he came in and as a favor and played at this little pizza joint on Ventura Place in Studio City. He's a drummer from New York. I know you know, and I know him too, and I can't remember. But he had this little pizza joint, and he's a drummer. He played with Johnny Mathis and different people. And,
I know what you're talking about.
Huh?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We'll think of his name in a minute. Anyway, Buddy was a friend of his too, and Buddy was in town, and he said, "Buddy, do me a favor, come in and play some night, will you?" He said, "I'll put the word out so I can make some money. I'm dying here, you know. Nobody's buying the pizza and so forth." So Buddy said, "Okay." So I get a call from Freddie Gruber, and Freddie says, "Well, if I didn't call you would, and let you know what's going on, you would murder me." And I said, "Well, no, what is it?" He says, "Buddy is going to play tomorrow night at so-and-so's, that pizza joint, you know, and that's it, you know, and we're all going to be there." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there. Okay, we'll all be there."
Just what he wanted, a bunch of people who aren't going to pay for their pizzas. This is going well.
Well, the word got out. Carson was there that night. You know, Mancini, Shelley. We were standing against the wall. I saw Shelley. Anyway, I'm sitting at a table right in front of this. Now, the drummer had this little funky bebop set. One cymbal's up there, and the snare drum this way, and totally opposite of what Buddy would play. Totally opposite, you know. So anyway, the piano player, great jazz piano player, and great bass player, and I'll think of their names. Anyway, we're all waiting for Buddy. And he was driving a Rolls Royce then, and Gruber was hanging out with him. So, and it's a storefront. So we're at a table. Were you there? I don't know. But Keltner, I'm sitting with Keltner, and finally Gruber comes in, and maybe Nick Ceroli. Anyway, we're right in front of him. The drums are right there, and so we're at this table, and I saw the car pull up, a Rolls Royce pull out, and Gruber gets out of the passenger thing, and then somebody takes the car, and Buddy walks in, and everybody says, "Hey," and there comes Buddy, and he looks at the drums, and he says, "This is it? This is him?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh." But, so he gets up there, he didn't change anything, he didn't move anything, whatever. And you know what he did, man, of the trio. You never heard such trio playing with brushes and everything. And Jimmy Keltner says, "I knew he had great chops, but I didn't know he could swing like that." Ask him, Jimmy, sometime. And it was a fun night.
I remember I heard about that a lot.
Oh, that night, yeah. Oh, man.
That was always something I used to tell
And he
students.
did stuff that, you know what he did when there were a bunch of drummers there? You know, he liked
yeah.
to, he could be a ham too.
Oh,
He
yeah.
With under the cymbals.
Not only
and
could
the
be,
thing
but he
about
would be.
ball, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember at Disneyland so many times there would be drummers sitting there. And he'd say, what was that? What was that? I don't know. How did he do that? What was that?
He constantly say
right?
that.
Yeah, he did so many things that. Yeah.
Well-
Oh man.
Yeah.
I would tell students if you did eliminate the technique,
Yeah.
you'd still be looking at him as a great drummer.
Oh, yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
icing
Yeah.
on. That was
Yeah.
he
I
put
saw-
that as the icing on the cake. I was across the street with some funky show band in Vegas, and he was playing across the street. So I got to go see
Yeah.
the last two sets every night and sneak over there
Wow.
during the day and sit behind the drums. And one night. So the drum solos, it was Buddy Rich. It couldn't get better. One night, the Basie band was down the street.
Yeah.
They all came into here,
Yeah.
and just like you said, he went to a level, one of those,
Yeah.
the one hand, put the hand down, the one hand solo,
Yeah,
floor
yes.
tom off of the
Yeah,
bass
he
drum.
did.
Okay,
It was
I
just-
saw him at the Paramount Theater with one arm. He broke his arm.
Oh
I
God.
remember
And
that.
Huh?
I
Yeah.
remember that.
Karate, right? He
Yeah.
was doing karate, and
I don't know
somebody
how he
pulled a
broke it.
I
board
forget
away.
how he broke it, but he played the whole, and he played not only played the band stuff, he played the acts.
Yeah.
He played the acts. And I remember when he was with Tommy Dorsey's band, I forget who was telling me this story. I think Buddy DeFranco was telling me this because he was on Dorsey's band, and he said in the afternoon they would rehearse in the theater. The acts would come in and pass out their charts, right? And Dorsey says, "Don't bother giving the drummer any charts. He can't read." And they'd go, "Oh, well, what do you mean he can't read?" They didn't know from Buddy Rich, you know, they didn't know. And then Buddy would say, "Well, just show me what you're going to do. Tell me what you're going to do." And they say, "Well, I do this, and I want you to get this." And everything registered. You know, he
photographic
had
memory.
Photographic, man.
In real life,
And
yeah.
so showtime came, he would play the act, and the act would flip out. Oh my God, that's the greatest thing. How did you know what to do? And they all fall in love with him, you know? I mean, unbelievable. It's a true story.
The show
I
he did.
believe it.
Yeah.
before,
You can hear it. You can hear it on
a
that.
lot of what's
Yeah.
on here, because we got all the rehearsal footage from during the day, he wouldn't be playing with the band when they would rehearse it.
No, I sat with him when he
another
he
drummer
wasn't
would,
playing.
or somebody would, but he'd just listen to it. So
Yeah.
when you're actually seeing him play it live at night, much of it is the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it, it was live. You know, they wanted to do one more chorus. They wanted to change it a little bit
Yeah.
while they were playing it
Yep.
live. Let's look at talking about him adapting and being a little bit out of what you would think of as his comfort zone. Probably, not only probably, I know he doesn't have a bossa nova in his book, but if you're playing behind Stan Getz,
Yeah.
that's something you're going to have to do. Lionel Hampton and Stan Getz. Take a look at this. This is another piece of the rehearsal from the Buddy Rich show.
So
Lionel's
Beautiful.
one more, and
Yeah.
then Buddy, right before it, after it cuts out, he's like, "You got it.
Yeah.
Let's take it from here and end up with it." It was interesting talking about Ray Charles earlier, and getting the licensing and all the things you have to do to put a project like this together, which was a learning experience for me. You go to all the estates of all these people who passed away, and Ray Charles's estate is a big ongoing business, of course. So I wasn't exactly sure how to approach them. Hi, I'm Don Lombardi. I happened to find this footage from 1984, and Ray's on it, and some of the two of the best performances I think I've ever seen of Ray. And they couldn't have been nicer, so I sent it to them, and I didn't hear back. I get an email, and it says, "I finally had a chance to look at it last night at 11 o'clock at night. Felt like I should have woke my wife up. I've never seen Ray so happy on or off the stage, and I've known him almost all my life."
Wow, that's
so
great.
It was just
I believe it, yeah.
It's kind of that camaraderie that you have with something like this.
Yeah.
That was actually from the actual show. The video we're talking about is the Buddy Rich Show. It was actually a pilot of a television show that never was aired. In fact, the footage was never edited. When I found it, it was like kind of finding a gold mine. It includes, some of the greatest musicians of all time as guests of Buddy, playing with Buddy and his band: Ray Charles, Woody Herman, Lionel Hampton, Mel Torme, Stan Getz, and Jerry Mulligan. It's really a historical piece, that something over 3 hours long you could listen to over and over again. Buddy, of course, is as always at his best, but even a little bit more put into this, because he's playing with all of his friends. So you're seeing him at the best of Buddy Rich, I guess I would say. And something I did, in addition to editing Buddy's songs that he played with the band as part of the overall show, I did another whole video on demand we have on Drum Channel, which we call Buddy Up Close. It's the geek version of Buddy playing with the band, where I took, since I had the raw footage, all the cameras that were on Buddy and kept them on Buddy for the whole song. We also got the audio footage, and that's something I'm going to play for you right now as we get back into our show today, where we have the bass drum hot, which is pretty interesting, the drums hot, which is cool to hear, and we have the band hot, so it's like a play along, and there's a slow-mo version. Of course, on Drum Channel, you can slow-mo the video anytime you want. You're also going to find out who some of Buddy's favorite drummers are, and Danny tells an Elvin Jones story that is another side of Buddy that we all know very well. He also had a very kind of a dry sense of humor and a little bit of a strange sense of humor, but you'll hear about it in the story that Danny tells regarding Elvin Jones and Buddy Rich. Check it out. We'll be back. I thought it would be kind of fun to take the tracks that Buddy played on. This is the drummer geek part, and kind of analyze them from an audio perspective. So let me play what we set up here. So he accents 2 and 4 a little bit on the bass drum.
Makes sense.
It's
Yes.
almost eerie to be hearing that. I almost feel like I'm getting too close to Buddy Rich. But it has to. I'm talking to some great drummers about that recently, and it's just like that has to do probably with a lot with the intensity that you don't know where that's coming from. And it's interesting, when he plays a fill, he keeps it even. So
Yeah,
he'll
yeah.
even it out. And obviously, if he doesn't like where the band is, he'll let you know with his bass drum in a minute. We did some research here on Drum Channel. We have instant access to any questions that anybody has. We can get to the bottom of it. And we were wondering if it was actually true about Buddy, and what did he say about young drummers back in the early day. Let's hear it. Let's see what he actually said here. This might answer your question, Greg. See if we have something here.
And that's that section, which was, it's an ass-kicking section. Challenging and fun, and got, so many different kinds of elements, but that's a real jazzy feel. I'm playing it with a little bit more of a rock volume, but maybe that's what Buddy liked about my playing. When he heard that, he heard a lot of himself in that, because there is a lot of Buddy in that section.
My opinions of the greats, from Chick Webb, Joe Jones, Blakey, Roach, some of the newer people that I admire, people like Steve Gadd, Danny Serafin with Chicago. They're all fine young drummers.
Hey, you want to document it? We got the fact right here.
It's there. Yeah.
There it is.
The earlier clip was from again the Art of Jazz Rock
I
Drumming.
fainted when I heard that, but
So-
one time I went to see, we were playing Madison Square Garden in New York, and Elvin Jones, I got tight with Elvin Jones, so he came to the concert with me, right? So he was drinking, Elvin had been drinking, and he liked his Heineken.
all day.
And he was like, he couldn't believe, all the people in this. And so after the show, it was Alvin and Keiko and myself, we were going to see Buddy and this big band at Jimmy's in New York. And Lenny was there and Armand, and was like, so we were sitting there, and I'm going, God, I'm with my two drum heroes. I mean, Buddy came out of his high, and so Buddy gets on stage, and he said, we got the most amazing, great drummer here tonight, and he's going to come sit in. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, Elvin Jones. And Elvin said, Elvin didn't want to sit in a big band, right? Not. So Buddy, he said, come on, let's get Elvin. So Elvin went and sat in. It wasn't pretty, just because that's not his style, right?
Yeah.
Afterwards, right? You could say Elvin was pissed because Buddy it was a practical joke So afterwards, he comes up and Elvin gave him a hug, but literally, you ever remember how strong Elvin was?
I was warned never to shake hands with him.
He literally picked Buddy up
Yeah.
in the air, and I heard him whisper, you ever fucking do that to me again, I'll kill you. And Buddy's eyes, Buddy was looking at me, Elvin, I was just kidding. And then he put him down. It was an amazing moment. But, it was Buddy, like he said, he had that kind of that sense of humor that. And that was, but it was okay. I mean, after that, it was fine. I mean, they were totally friends, and
Something about his playing that for years and years and years, I noticed this. He played time with both hands at the same time. Always, that left hand is always going. Right? And
Always, yeah.
And a lot of drummers I know have tried to emulate that, and it sounds clumsy. And it never worked for me. I couldn't, and it bugged the hell in me. It just worked so nice for him, no matter what the tempo was. That the hand was never just resting, whatever. Always, right? And all the jazz, always time, always, and the way it.
Yeah,
the
you're
whole
right about
thing
the way he plays shuffles.
Melded together.
Yeah.
It was under the right
So fluid.
it was dynamic.
Yes, it wasn't. But guys sound
so fluid.
clumsy.
Incredible, man.
And I know some good drummers that it would sound clumsy.
That subject would often come up when I talk with Freddie about Buddy, but it'd be interesting. let's take a look at exactly what you're talking about, and we'll kind of wind up our conversation today, seeing a little bit, getting some insights into Buddy's technique. So let's take a look at one of the songs that Buddy played from the Buddy Rich Show, and we'll see what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, that's a cool way. I might try that.
But if you notice, he always did that. No matter what the tempo.
Swinging it like that.
The trick is...
It makes it swing so much harder.
It does, yeah. Plus the bass drum, I mean, I think if you put all these subtleties together, it all added up. So it was always interesting in looking at that. And Freddie, when he first came out here and started teaching, for the first couple of years or so, which is when I fortunately had the opportunity to meet with him through Terry Gibbs, actually introduced me to Freddie. He was breaking everything down and analyzing everything. And then he realized he was starting to teach drummers who were already playing, and he would then mold their careers more than starting them from the beginning. But it was always the quest of, like in the old days in New York, when you knew Buddy and Freddie, they would hang out together and be backstage, and Freddie was younger than Buddy, of course.
Right.
As I mentioned, Buddy did have an interesting sense of humor. Next, we're going to hear a little bit from Freddie Gruber about one of the unique things that he showed me in my early days studying with him about Buddy's technique. A little teaser about things to come as I explain more to you about how Freddie Gruber explained Buddy's technique to me and other lessons and shows we have here on Drum Channel. Also, I remember like it was yesterday, Frank DeVito calling me saying, who could I talk to at some of the new companies that was Tama, Pearl, and Yamaha at the day, because Buddy wanted me to call them. I'll leave it up to Frank to tell you that story. And also Frank tells a fun story when we were at his house with Buddy and his coffee table. Here it is.
I got a number for somebody at Tama, and then know me, a Japanese guy, and I said, my name is Frank DeVito.
I know who it was, I remember giving you the number.
Okay, my name is Frank DeVito, and I'm representing Buddy Rich, and he likes your drums very much. He never played it, but I said he loves your drums, loves the sound of your drums, and he's thinking he'd like to play your drums and like to make a deal with your company, you know. And he's been with all of the other companies, and he gets a salary, you know. And yes, that's about it from this Japanese guy. You know, yes. How much he'd want? And I said, well. 100,000. What? I said $100,000 a year, you know, and plus all the equipment. And he says, I will call you back. Okay. Next day or the day after, phone, and I got the call. I said, you, Mr. DeVito? I said, yes. He said, no. I said, does that mean that you're not interested in having Buddy come with your company playing your drums? Yes. No. Thank you. Got to start. I'll bet you guys haven't heard this one before. I'll make it short about Buddy. Right. Buddy's doing a gig someplace in the Midwest, and a guy shows up and said, Buddy, you know, it goes around backstage later, but he says, Buddy, you don't remember me? I'm Joe Rotundi, and I played saxophone on Tommy Dorsey's band with you years ago. Oh, yeah. He says, Buddy, you know, fantastic. The band was great, and, you know, what can I tell you? Just marvelous, greatest thing I ever heard. He said, what are you going to be doing tomorrow night? I heard you guys are going to be in town for a couple of days. He says, we're off tomorrow night. He says, you have to come to the house. My wife is the greatest cook, Italian food. You have to come to the house. And, oh, by the way, my son is a drummer. Buddy says, I said, okay. But I think Buddy told me this story, but it's a true story. So he said, this guy's a Rotundi, he says, Buddy, he plays just like you. Oh, he plays just like you. And Buddy's, But you got to come. My wife is going to make ossobuco. She's going to make lasagna and everything for you. Bring a couple of the guys in the band. And wait till you hear my son. Wait till you hear my son. It plays just like he said, about 14 times. Okay, fine. Anyway, next night comes, have a wonderful dinner, and the kid is staring at Buddy, you know, all through the kid's flipping, you know. I don't know, he's probably 17 and maybe. And after dinner, Rotundi says, well, let's go down to the basement, you know, and Tony, I want Tony to play for you, Buddy, you know. And Buddy says, okay. And on the way down, but he plays just like, oh boy, you'll be
What a
knocked
terrible
out.
thing to say.
He plays just,
I can see it coming.
So they're going in, but Buddy's keeping his cool, obviously, at that time. Now, downstairs, the kid's got an exact replica of Buddy set and some big speakers there. Puts a record on of Buddy playing, and the kid plays along with it. And he's playing, and then he plays and the guy's looking at Buddy, you know, and Buddy's and finishes playing, plays just like you know, bang, and he says, "What do you think, Buddy?" And Buddy says, "I'm not playing too good tonight, am I?" Give me a drumstick. I just want to do one thing regarding Buddy Rich before I forget it.
Sure.
He's at our house, and you were there.
Yep.
And so he picks up the drums. I had drumsticks in a magazine rack.
We're sitting
like
on the
about
couch
here,
in
on the
front of your
couch.
coffee table.
And while we're talking, Buddy picks up the sticks, and this is the coffee table. And while we're talking, he starts doing stuff, you know, doing fooling around, you know, all of this. And I'm looking at him, staring at him, you know, and he said, "Can I play something for you?" You know, the humor. And I said, "Yeah, play a paradiddle." And remember, he said, "I don't know how a paradiddle goes. What's a?" I never studied drums. I never took any lessons. And I said, "Well, it goes right, left, right, left, right, right." He says, slow down. Don't try to impress me." And I said, "I'm trying to impress you." I said, "It's right, left, right, right, left, right." He said, "Oh, that." He said, "Oh, that." I said, "Come on, is this it?" And then you said, "You mean you're teaching him?" He said, "Buddy, you never played a paradiddle before?" He said, "No, I don't hang around with drummers." You know, that was just. And at one point, while we're talking, I went, you know, and he said, "That's fast." And I said to him, "What'd you say?" He said, "You heard me. You heard what I said."
Then you said, "How do you do that?" And he just went, "Oh,
Yeah, right.
It's just
Yeah,
like this. It's just like this."
Well,
Yeah.
that's the. I learned that's the Chapin thing, basically,
yeah,
isn't it?
right.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, when we were around Buddy on those many occasions, they were completely relaxed. I was like the kid in the candy store. Like I was always a little bit intimidated. And that coffee table is in your living room as of today.
My wife wanted to get rid of it. You know, she said it didn't
As you
fit in with my
remodel the
late
house.
wife.
Right.
And I said, "No, Buddy Rich played on that coffee table."
Can't get better than that.
No, I have it right now in my apartment.
And last, Alex Acuna has a great story which encompasses so much of what I've heard about Buddy Rich. Not only from Freddie Gruber about the way that he played, about getting to know him myself and the person that he was. So check this out. Listen, it's a great story, and it's a lesson there too.
I came to the USA in 1964, April. I started working in Las Vegas at the Tropicana Hotel. And that's when they told me that Buddy Rich was going to be there like 3 months later with Harry James. I think it was the Desert Inn, one of those hotels. And so I came back to Los Angeles after my little tour, but I knew the date or the week that he was going to be in Las Vegas. So I told my friend, you know, you speak English and Spanish, can we go to Las Vegas? I pay you for everything, whatever you need, and but I want to meet Buddy Rich. She said, "Well, you kidding? Me too." So we went, right? We drove 4 or 5 hours, whatever. We got there, so we went. You know, in those days, I used to really dress, you know, with jacket and tie and everything, but you know, because that was the way everybody dressed up, you know. So I wait. Definitely, I was kind of looking. I could not get in the casino. I had to be in the lobby. And I was listening, you know, Harry James playing, and Buddy Rich was the drummer. said, wow, my ears they grew that day, huge. I became an elephant, musically speaking. And so we wait for him, and I think we intercept him in the right moment with my friend. And my friend said, Mr. Buddy Rich, Alex is from Peru, and he's a drummer, he's playing with Perez Prado, blah, 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 introduced me properly. And he would like to ask you one question. Sure, yeah, whatever. Yeah, what is the question? Like that. Buddy Rich. So my friend interpreted. I said, ask him how everything he plays is in tune, in the pocket. I will say now my interpretation with his body. It's like his whole being and the instruments are one. How did he get there? How did he got there? How did he accomplish that? He said, wow, very interesting question, kind of like that, the way. And then he just wanted to leave. He said, it's natural. It's all natural. That word, natural, changed my life. I still carry that word in me. That's what he told me. Oh, it's natural. Just like that, the way he will say, if you know Buddy Rich, his voice, his tone, his demeanor, when he says something, it's natural, well-dressed, skinny, and beautiful. I never forget him. Thank you, Buddy. Changed my life.
It's just natural. Makes it sound really easy. Maybe it is. I hope you enjoyed these Buddy Rich stories. There are many more on drumchannel.com. Please join us on Facebook and Instagram @drumchannel. And I'll see you next Tuesday, sitting right here for another episode of Lombardi Live.